Hello and welcome to Bottom Line. Well, straight away we'll have to move to a big breaking news. As many as 26 fresh cases have been reported in Assam. All the cases have been reported from the Sarusajai quarantine center. This is the biggest one-time spike in cases in Assam. 26 in one go. This takes the total number of positive cases in the state to 256, while the active cases are also nearing the 200 mark, 195 active cases to be precise. So this is the big breaking news at this hour. As many as 26 fresh cases reported from Assam just a short while back. Only silver lining is that all the cases are from the Sarusajai quarantine center, but this is the biggest one-time spike in cases, COVID cases, as far as Assam is concerned. The total number of positive cases now stands at 256. Active cases has gone up to 195. So again, the biggest single day spike in the COVID count in Assam till date. 26 now. We had 20 earlier. Add that, it becomes 46. So clearly the numbers are rising. I'm being joined over the phone right now by our editor-in-chief Wasbir Hussain. Wasbir, the biggest one-time spike in cases, 26 at one go.
Absolutely, number one, 26 at one go, that is from the Sarusajai quarantine center in the heart of Guwahati. 26 people who were who had come from outside. They were already on a quarantine, institutional quarantine at the Sarusajai Stadium. That there is this quarantine center. 26 have tested positive. Earlier there were 20 from different parts of the state today. So the total number of positive cases in a single day today has gone up to 46. So this is by far the largest single day spike in the number of COVID positive cases in a day in the state of Assam. Now, the only silver lining, Navaron, is that almost all these cases, whether it is in Guwahati or whether it is elsewhere, have been people who were tested positive out of the quarantine centers. So that means they have a clear case of travel history that come to the state from outside. They are among the thousands of returnees who have come to Assam in the last couple of weeks. In fact, last couple of days, they have come to Assam from different parts of the country. So they have tested positive. So this is the only silver lining, but there is still no case of large number of community transmission from anywhere in Assam. There have been 2-3 cases where the source has been doubtful, but on the whole, a lot of these cases have been from the quarantine center. Yes, this has taken the total to 256 cases.
Okay, we seem to have lost the line there, but we will try and connect again. But the breaking news at this hour is that 26 fresh cases have been reported from Assam. The total now is 256, while active cases are 195, and it's still counting. Mind you, for the last 4 days, the numbers have been surging. Just 2 days back, there were 42 cases in a day. The day before yesterday, it was 31. Yesterday, 15. Today, 46. So in 4 days' time, the number of COVID cases recorded have gone well over 100, and we have 256 cases as far as Assam is concerned, and this only when far less than half of those who are still stranded outside have come back to the state. That is the worry. That is the bigger worry at this moment, because there are approximately 10 lakh people from Assam or even more who are stranded outside, of which close to 1.5 lakh are supposed to have come back by now. Even if you estimate that 3 to 4 lakh more people come in, these numbers are expected to rise further, as we have also seen in the case of Manipur. So does this mean that it's high time entry has to be regulated in a more phased manner, because the way the numbers are rising, if it's 100 cases in just over 3 days, then even if they are in quarantine centers, those people who have tested positive would need to be admitted to COVID hospitals. Do we have as many beds? Do you have as many isolation wards? No matter how much you prepare, that is the bigger question that remains. So this is the big question, and I'll be joined for to carry forward the debate tonight, the discussion tonight on Bottom Line. I'll be joined by Dr. R.K. Lenin from Imphal, RIMS Imphal. Dr. Navajyoti Gogoi, SDMO Dibrugarh, will also join me from Dibrugarh. In the studios, I have Dr. Sangeeta Datta. A very warm welcome to all of you. Dr. Sangeeta Datta, just as you heard, 26 cases, 26 fresh cases, biggest one-time spike in cases. Well, things are getting serious. Yes, the only silver lining is that all the cases are in a quarantine center.
Exactly, it's very alarming, and we have two things I have two things to say here. Number one, as you rightly said, maybe it's high time we think that we actually phase out the entry of the people who are coming back, the returnees to Assam, because if we don't do so and if the trend continues, we are not sure, no matter how much of capacity building has been happening, we are not sure if we have enough ICU facilities, enough beds to admit them in COVID hospitals. That's one. And the other thing is that these people who have tested positive, of course, the silver lining is that they have a clear travel history and they're in quarantine centers. But these people will now have to follow norms. Are these norms being followed in the quarantine centers? Apart from that, some people have also been reported to trying to flee, the centers to break norms also. The Honorable Health Minister of Assam, he has actually been very clear on this. He said that stringent punishment, legal actions will be taken against those who do not follow norms or who try to escape quarantine, especially in the case of returnees to the state of Assam. I hope everybody understands what it means and everybody takes this seriously, because if they don't do, the chain of transmission will not be broken. Now we have this many cases in the quarantine center who hopefully in due course of time they will test negative and they will go back to their respective homes, and perhaps we'll be able to phase out the entry of new returnees also. That way maybe there is a possibility that we'll be able to bring the situation under control. But in this case, either if there is no phasing out and too many returnees test positive, or else if the people who test positive do not follow norms or they try to escape the situation, escape from the quarantine centers, then of course we can expect a disaster, because we will not be able to stop the chain of transmission, and which means that the situation will go out of hand.
Absolutely. Dr. Navajyoti Gogoi, number of cases witnessing a steep rise in Assam. Do you think if those coming to the state from outside region do not come in a regulated manner very soon, there might be a lot of pressure in COVID hospitals in the state?
Oh, yeah, you're very right. But the thing, if they're coming as it is, one or two trains, we can bear that. Definitely, but quite a large number of people are coming, and as expected, we are getting a lot of cases, those who have come from outside, not only in Assam. That's a concern for us, but looking at the things, that the way it is happening, as in media, as we heard that a lot of trains are coming from next week onwards, and there will be a lot of pressure for us. Likewise, with Dibrugarh, we had Neil. Yesterday, we had just scored one, and luckily, he is supposed to be the only case that came into Dibrugarh in a proper manner. We could welcome him, in fact, in the way we have expected it. He didn't have any contact. We have taken the contact history. He didn't have any contact outside, so straight away he was taken to the quarantine center, and we have collected all the samples those who have arrived in Dibrugarh. That's also a very huge task we are dealing with, and he is very safe. He is hale and hearty. He has just simple nasal congestion, simple infections. While we are taking him to the COVID hospital, he looked very smart. we have taken care of him well.
Okay, but again, Dr. Gogoi, Manipur has decided to further regulate the entry of its stranded residents. For instance, it will allow entry of trains with a gap in between. Do you think the way we are witnessing the rise in numbers in Assam, do you think if Assam continues to witness such steep rise, say for the next 3-4 days to come, the government may have to mull something similar as Manipur has done? That means regulating the entry, not blocking the entry, but regulating, allowing people to come in a certain period of time, and then there will be a gap so the quarantine facilities don't feel the heat, neither do the COVID hospitals.
Yes, that will be wise enough if the government does that, because all our health workers since February we have started very early, right from airport to railway stations, then to all the people, those who are coming by route, and it's a huge task. We are engaging all our health staff, right from ASA workers to the top health officials and doctors. Those are busy almost 24/7 all the time. And night also, people are working on the roads. They have a good, luckily we do have a very good coordination among the civil and the police authorities out here. And that's a very plus point for us. They have been helping us very well. And our health workers also, some of them seems to be tiring now. If the train comes in a fashion that is coming right now, I think that will be bearable. If more trains comes in a frequent intervals, and that will be a difficult task. The way that steep rise in cases are happening, that will be a trouble for us a little bit.
Absolutely. Dr. R.K. Lenin, 24 cases in no time in Manipur, but perhaps the decision to put everyone in compulsory institutional quarantine is paying dividends as far as Manipur is concerned. Otherwise, massive contact tracing would have been required to be initiated. What's your thoughts?
Navrun, that's right. I fully agree with you. This is the right decision of the government, and within the last week, from zero active case, now we are having 24 and altogether 26 confirmed cases. And luckily, all of them could be traced who are the persons in contact with them, because they are religiously kept in the institutional quarantine. So that is very, very lucky at this juncture. Otherwise, with the limited infrastructures and facilities, we would have faced a very difficult time if they were not kept in the quarantine. It's a very good decision, and I hope it will be continued in spite of the limited number of institutional quarantine. I think all of us will cooperate to create new facilities for the people to come in. Otherwise, this is the best policy. If practically a little bit straining, it is the best policy. I do agree with this.
Absolutely. Dr. Sangeeta Datta, we have been discussing, even in the past week, we have been discussing how institutional quarantine is much better than sending people to home quarantine, and vice versa. But again, the way the numbers are rising and with the number of people coming in from outside, one thing is definitely clear, that certain percentage, even if it's 1% or 0.01% of those coming from outside, carry the virus, still it may reflect as hundreds. So, so clearly, things are serious, and probably despite everything, we won't be able to put, if the inflow continues this way, we won't be able to put everyone into institutional quarantine. So eventually, it has to be community quarantine.
Absolutely. The other day, when in one of your shows, we were discussing that people have arranged something called community quarantine in the state of Manipur, especially in the rural areas where they have built huts and for people coming from red zones, orange zones and green zones. I think that was very innovative. all of us will need to think about this issue, because a point will definitely come when we will not be able to accommodate all those COVID positive patients who come home from other states to be accommodated in institutional or in hospital
Absolutely.
quarantine.
I'll take this question again.
Yes.
We are again connected over the phone by Northeast Live Editor in Chief Wasbir Hussain. Wasbir, yes, as you mentioned, the only silver lining is that all the 26 have tested positive in quarantine centers. But then again, they have to be admitted to COVID hospitals. So the pressure is definitely building as far as the infra is concerned.
Yes, absolutely. Number one, yes, pressure is building as far as infrastructure is concerned, particularly in the city of Guwahati, the capital. The Mahendra Mohan Chaudhary Hospital is almost full. They must have already exhausted the capacity by now. But as we have been saying since the last 2 days, the 300-bed exclusive COVID facility is coming up at the Guwahati Medical College Hospital, but it will take another 4 to 5 days, and they must be hastening up the process. Even then, it will take at least 2 to 3 more days. Even if they work at a breakneck speed day and night, it is going to take 2 to 3 more days for the 300-bed facility to come up. But otherwise, they have the facility at Sonapur and Kalapahar. These are the 2 areas where they have the facilities to keep the COVID positive cases. But one important thing, Navarone, which I would like to highlight at this point in time is that so many people who have come from outside, who have been on quarantine, have now tested positive. This also reinforces the fact that our people from Assam, or for that matter, anywhere else in the Northeast who are outside, they need to have a much more stricter lifestyle, perhaps outside. They have to take care of themselves properly. As to otherwise, how the moment they have come here, they have tested positive. There may be 2 things. They may not have taken adequate protection during the 3 to 4 day journey from their respective places home. They must have got down on their way. They must have been eating food in the dhabas without much of a care. So, the personal hygiene may not have been that good during their travel back home, or even during their stay in some other places. These are some of the things I think our medical fraternity would also do well to actually highlight. You have several of the doctors in the panel today, and I'm sure they will also have a better position to tell the people. But basically, it is not rocket science that we are dealing with. Basically, it's personal hygiene. I think our people outside, thousands of them are yet to come. In fact, lakhs of them are yet to return home. In Assam alone, the estimate is between 12 to 15 lakhs who are supposed to be outside. And if you take the entire Northeast into consideration, it will be anything between 17 to 18 lakhs, or almost 2 million people who will be returning home to different parts of the northeastern region, the largest being to Assam. So therefore, we have a lot to come, Navarone. You have very rightly highlighted the issues. Infrastructure is going to be a key issue, and therefore, since the people who are coming from outside are increasingly testing positive, Navarone, I think the people who are here, who have no travel history, the people like us who have no travel history, we have to ensure that we do not unnecessarily venture out and put ourselves as well as the other people to risk. I think this is the time to cooperate with the authorities, cooperate with the government, and do not escalate matters and do not make matters worse, because we have so many of our people who have come, and of course we cannot stop people from returning home. Navarone.
Thank you, Wasbir, for your perspective on that. Dr. Datta, as we're discussing, probably home quarantine is the way forward. Secondly, traveling is not safe. Traveling is still not safe, hence proved. Traveling is still not safe. We may have rail services running. We may have flight services, domestic airlines resuming from May 25th, but traveling doesn't seem very safe till now.
It's not safe at all. In fact, Wasbir Hussain has just now made a very beautiful point. That's a very pertinent point, I would say. How is it possible that so many returnees actually test positive on a single day? Which means that they perhaps had a lifestyle outside the state of Assam where they were not following norms. Otherwise, it is very difficult to understand and believe that...
Or maybe it was difficult to follow norms at the same time.
Yes, perhaps it was very difficult to follow too. And like we have discussed, it will be a point, a time will come perhaps very soon when we will have to think about home quarantine and community quarantine, because we will not be able to accommodate all of them in institutional quarantine. And again, the point, it becomes even more important now for people like us for us to follow norms, not to venture out of homes, to wear masks, to wash our hands repeatedly, and to follow all the guidelines, because the only way to protect ourselves from COVID-19, even in the times of crisis with rising number of cases in the state of Assam and in Guwahati also every day, is only by breaking the chain of transmission. And therefore, we have to follow norms. Instead of getting panicky, instead of being afraid of the situation, we have to understand what has led to this and rather take steps to stop the chain of or break this chain of transmission.
Dr. R.K. Lenin, majority of those who have tested positive in Manipur hail from Churachandpur. There's a lot of concern in the district. So apart from pepping up capacity building, massive awareness and confidence booster is also required, you believe, for the masses during this time of crisis, Dr. Lenin?
Exactly. This is a time we have to maintain calm, and that will come only when we are equipped with the knowledge, evidence-based knowledge, and of course it has to be converted into the appropriate behavioral change. Now we presume that many of these people might not be fully aware of the nature of the virus and how it is being spread. In spite of the repeated awareness being sent out from the authority, that 2-3 things, very simple ones like physical distancing, hand hygiene and mask, and few very simple things, but converting them to reality means in real practice, we need to adjust. And bringing a behavioral change in a short notice is also very, very difficult, because habit is something which comes after a long time. So in order to resolve this, we have to do this continuous regular update of the facts and knowledge about this virus and the COVID-19 to the mass, preferably in the local language, preferably in the simple language that they could understand, illiterate people could understand. Number 2, then also to do something to do away with this panic, that this being a reality and we are supposed to live with the virus for quite few more months or at least and maybe years, then we have to teach them to live with the virus and not to run away or not to think that it is for a period of a few months or weeks and then we can escape somehow. No, we have to live with it. So we have to build our capacity, we have to prepare our mind, we have to change our attitude towards the virus and live with it. That means we have to follow strictly the proper guidelines or SOP. And one thing, very important thing, is that not only from the healthcare givers, not only from the government, the responsibility of each and every citizen is very important now. The behavior of each and every citizen counts now. If we don't take these precautions, simple precautions, very religiously, the breaking of the chain of spread of this virus will be very, very difficult. So the ball is in the this thing. In the community. So community, of course, community participation is very good in my place, but suddenly the sudden spike of the positive cases in Churachandpur is giving some panic. But now hopefully people will adjust to it, and at the same time practically we need to build up the capacity also, because bringing all the positive people to Imphal and manage will be very difficult, and we have to build up the capacity of District Hospital Churachandpur and other health facilities also. So side by side from two ends, one is the bringing up of the facilities and another one is preparing the community or empowering each and every citizen to take part in this fight, and not to take it as an imposition, but to take it as a responsibility of a responsible citizen. That will be the strongest weapon of this point of time.
And do you think, that's what we've been discussing right now, regulated entry of the stranded. Do you think the Manipur government's decision to further regulate the entry of stranded people is very timely, considering the sharp rise in cases? But again, there are two sides to it. The family members might want their near and dear ones to return as soon as possible. It's also a very emotional thing. And as a family member, everybody would be worried of their near and dear ones who are outside the region. So it's kind of a mixed kind of a situation.
Yes. Exactly. We have to balance the situation. Of course, we have to accept our brothers and sisters. They are facing a lot of hard time, and when such a difficult time at this juncture, everyone would love to come back to their own home, and we have to accept them. We have to welcome them. But at the same time, we have to balance. If they come in a in a group together, then there is no proper place for institutional or community quarantine. So where they will go? They will ultimately go to the home quarantine or residences. Thereby, we will face a very difficult situation. So, as this is an appropriate and I think it is a very right decision to phase out, to bring them in a phased manner when the facilities are built up and when there are facilities practically visible that these are the places allotted for the people who are expected to come, then only we give the permission to bring new batch of people. So as they are suffering for the last 1 or 2 months, a few more weeks, I think we have to request them to bear. Of course, all of them will come back, but in a phased manner. Otherwise, we will be overwhelmed. As of now, also we have seen some burnout, and there are some difficulty in coordination because this is the first time we are facing in such a magnitude. And at the same time, when we buy some time, we build up our capacity. Especially, we can mobilize some volunteers also, maybe paid volunteers with a minimum briefings, do's and don'ts, and they can be utilized in maintaining the quarantine smoothly. At the same time, we can also motivate the people who are staying in the quarantine to participate, not to stay passively, to participate in maintaining the quarantine itself. Say, for example, cleaning the rooms of their own place and helping out those small things in the maintaining the quarantine, and also keeping their morale high during these 14 days, not to take it as a punishment, but to take it as a sacrifice for the sake of self and the people of the state, their family, and that will give them more reason to smile rather than to suffer.
We'll have to take a very short break here, but on the other side, we'll be joined by some more guests. So stay tuned.